Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video. In this video we're going to be taking a first look at League Season 8 Ascendable characters. There are 3 characters, one is a unique Ascendable and then we have 2 returning Ascendables as we have gone back to the 2 returning Ascendable system. Just like last season in Season 7. So first up we're going to look at the unique Ascendable and her name is Moira. This is what she looks like as a 6-star and it does look like she's going to only be a 6-star character, however she does look pretty decent. I'm going to run through her stats. She's got 2090 attack, 2694 defense and 2174 HP. Her trait is strong and her role is medic. Her adrenaline rush is called Frazzling Slashes, is a 76 AP cost rush, deal 400 bleed damage to a line of enemies for 3 turns. Those enemies get 400 exhaust for 3 turns. So I have actually said in the past that I think 6-star characters going forward really shouldn't have percentage damage in terms of being viable as damage dealers. And this is great because 400 bleed damage, it can be lacerated. It's not huge amounts, but it can be doubled and it's going to actually do pure damage. And that means you can make this character very defensive with her combat mods, very defensive with her weapon, and she's still going to do the same amount of damage. It's going to be no problem at all. Now the exhaust is pretty interesting. I think this is the highest powered exhaust in the game, and basically what happens with exhaust is every time a character gains 10% AP, they'll take 400 main damage. So if a character gains 100% AP, they will take 4,000 main damage. Now it is on the rush, and the rush isn't super fast, it's just a normal rush, so it's not going to go off really that quick. So you won't be able to get ahead of certain characters like Dr. Stevens, for instance. You won't be able to get ahead of maybe an Arav who's going to be going off quite a lot due to the 100% AP gain on his rush. But it is the most powerful version in the game, and it could be useful against characters who obviously boost other characters' AP. There are a couple of characters right now, like Michelle, who does AP gain to 2 others, and if they've got this, I think she gives 35%, so they would take 1,200 damage. Against S-class characters, it's not going to be huge amounts, but it's going to be a bit of a bonus, so her potential is actually pretty decent just based off of her rush. Now we'll look at her active skill, and I'll go ahead and say this is probably one of the best active skills for free-to-play in the game in terms of how powerful it is once it goes off. It does have quite a long initial cooldown, but potentially on a defense team, for instance with like Lao Po or something like this, that active skill could be really, really dangerous. The issue you're going to have obviously with 6 stars being on the defense team is they're not going to be hugely tanky, but because you don't have to stack damage, you're going to make this character really defensive anyway. Now it's focus and elusive, initial cooldown of 3, but then it has a cooldown of 2. Up to 5 teammates get focus for 2 turns, so this is everybody. And focus stops people from getting taunted, it stops people from getting confused, and it also bypass shields. Shields aren't a big deal right now, but in the future they could become a big deal again, you never know. The other part of it is really interesting, it's all other teammates, so not Moira, everybody else gets elusive for 2 turns, and this is pretty much what Raven does. Hers is a turn 1, however, but Raven does elusive to all other teammates for I think it's 2 turns. So pretty nice. It is a bit slow in terms of the initial cooldown, but if you get to turn 3, you've got full control at that point. If you are on an attack team, maybe you're coming up against a bit of a mismatch in power, there's going to be elusive everywhere, there's going to be focus everywhere, you're going to have 2 turns of quite a lot of control and just freedom to sort of ignore taunts, confuses. So I think that active score is pretty nice on certain attack teams, and the only downside to it on a defense team is just the fact that Moira is a 6-star. Now she does have the specialist skill Hemorrhage, and Hemorrhage is really fun, guys. I'm going to be honest, it's just really fun, and this is the first free-to-play version of a Hemorrhage 6-star character. I think the only other versions of Hemorrhage aren't even really that good. In terms of Zachary's got Hemorrhage, but it isn't really Hemorrhage you think about when you think about Zachary. It's a little bonus there. And I think the other one is Hina, who was pretty much never seen after her roadmap. I mean, she could have become a free-to-play character. She isn't that overpowered or anything. But we're going to get it here with Moira. And basically what happens is with Hemorrhage is you attack a character. If you hit a critical hit, Hemorrhage starts on that character and they start bleeding for 150. Then the next turn it goes up 150 more to 300, then 150 more, the next turn to 450, and it just keeps going up and up and up. Now eventually it could hit, 3,000, but it can also be lacerated. So let's say I hit a crit, it hits 150, lacerator can come in, double it to 300. Next turn it goes up to 450 because of the extra 150 for hemorrhage. Lacerator comes in, doubles it to 900. Then it goes up to 1050, lacerator comes in, 2100. So you're looking at huge amounts of damage. Now it does take a few turns to get going, but with the control on the active, and if you have other controlling characters, it could make bleed teams viable again within free-to-play, where it kind of dropped off unless you were getting like the top level 6-star characters like Jiafeng and Alina. You could potentially still make bleed teams with those sort of characters. So all in all, I'd probably put Moira here in top 3 of characters that we've had in the store ever. Now it is in the S-Class era, so it's not going to be super viable long term. It's going to be very niche attack teams, but in terms of enjoyment, in terms of actual pure power compared to the other 6 stars, I think only Charlie really competes in terms of usefulness and long-term usability. I think Charlie could still be used on certain attack teams just because of that taunt, and I think the specialist skill mainly is going to be really useful, and the active skill on attack teams could make Moira really good long-term. So I actually am really happy with this character. I think this is almost an instant purchase for me, just based on the fact that I know I'm going to enjoy using this character. So I'm really, really happy that a character like this has been added. The next Ascendable character, and this is the first of the returning characters, is going to be Bruce Allan Cooper. Now, I'm not going to break this guy down too much in depth, but he's basically branded the 6-star version of SR Zeke. He has pretty good defensive stats. He's a strong character, so can have a stun on attack weapon. He also has a little bit of damage on his rush, but we kind of want to ignore that, but it's about the buffs. He gives quite a lot of buffs. He also has some AP control in there as well. And I think the active is confused, so again, more control, and the specialist skill is neutralized. So he's got a nice variation of control, stun on the weapon potentially, confuse on the active skill, and impair on the specialist skill. And that means no matter what, no individual character can resist all 3 of those. So he's going to potentially be able to do something to every single character that he attacks. You could potentially pair him up with Moira in an attack team, and they'd work together very, very well, just because control and defense is generally a good way to build your bleed teams, and this guy does boost defense, which is really going to be useful for any bleed teams that still use 6-star characters, and all that control is great. He does not have an attached weapon, so you can slot a stun weapon in his hands without a problem. I am actually really surprised that they've added Zander, because I think he's actually a pretty good character himself, and he is a command, which is really useful in the S-Class era, because you can make an S-Class character attack on the rush a turn earlier, which means you can just get so much power out 1 turn earlier, which is massive. You get Priya Rush out earlier. Krista working on that range team works really well. Now the only downside to this character, he does have a bit of imbalance on his stats towards attack, but you can obviously make it up within the combat mods and his weapon upgrades. He is a tough support character, he isn't a command, and he deals 500% damage. He does have a little bit of control. He's kind of like a Sadiq in terms of the control and AP gain, but he has 100% AP gain for one of his teammates. So effectively, if this guy rushes and every other single teammate has got 0% AP, and there's one, let's say Priya's got 10 AP, she's going to get the 100% AP because she's got the highest AP, and she'll be able to rush that turn. So it's effectively like a full command, like a double command, and she will still be able to go the next turn as well. So really nice rush potentially. Now the active skill is disarm and AP gain. It is okay, and I think one of the reasons they've added this is probably because disarm is going to be weaker now because there's disarm resist. So you're going to need more active skill disarms because you're going to probably need more attempts to hit that. Now, is 3 characters get disarmed for 3 turns? It's much more powerful than the Piper one, which is, I think it's 2 for 2. So it's the same initial cooldown, but it's just a little bit stronger in terms of 2 for 2 versus 3 for 3. So Zander definitely comes out on top there. He still gains the same percentage AP, so 35% AP to self, so there's no advantage or disadvantage there. His rush is 76, so he's going to require, I think it's 2 AP percentage weapons to still get his rush on turn 3 if you were going to do this. But you'd most likely use his specialist skill and command someone on turn 2, so he would be kind of lacking in terms of the amount of AP he gained regardless. Now he has got an attached weapon and it is quite unique. It is very tanky, so you have good base stats, 30 HP, that's great. That's kind of where he's lacking on his base stats anyway, so you want to boost that a little bit, so you've already got that on there. Now you could go for AP on attack if you actually want to rush, or you could make him even more tanky, just increase that defense to 30% and then either go for 35, 35 or hit 40% on one of those 2 stats. Now, this is where it gets interesting because his third slot, while he won't be gaining AP very often because he's going to be commanding and stuff, he could potentially gain quite a lot of AP if he gets targeted. So if you can try and make it so that he's the focus, build your team in a certain way where he's getting targeted, he could get his rush early and then just, again, he gets a nice 100% boost to someone, and that's going to be a huge rush. So those were the Season 8 Ascendable characters in the Season Store. I would say this is probably one of the best seasons yet. It is just a shame that this is now the S-Class era. It doesn't look like there's going to be anything in terms of S-Class in the Season Store, but there could be changes in the League Store. We'll have to wait and see. But regardless, I am definitely happy about Moira. I think she's a great character to add as the unique. She's going to be fun. But do tell me what you think about the unique character Moira. What do you think about Bruce Allen Cooper and Zander being added as well? That is the end of my video. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.